A rad father to Ezekiel and a loving husband to Charlene, Michael Wray, the first ever champion of Hell's Kitchen, battled with his inner demons but came out on top. The shy but extremely talented Chef Michael, who hailed from Fort Collins, Colorado, made it to the final round of the very first US season of Hell's Kitchen. And let me tell you, his final challenge was no joke. Considering it was the first ever season finale of the show, Michael had to run his own kitchen with cameras capturing his every move. What made it even more challenging was the fact that the legendary and fearsome Chef Ramsay kept a close eye on him. Michael was just 27 years old at the time, but he didn't let his nerves get to him. He rose to the occasion like a true champ. He killed it in the kitchen, showing off his skills and proving that he was meant to be there. It was a make or break moment, and boy did he make it. For those of you who don't know what happened next or need a refresher, I got you covered. He won the $250,000 prize to start his own restaurant. But that's when things got really interesting. Chef Ramsay, in a very dramatic way, revealed this.
I realised an individual of Michael's talent that I didn't want to let him get away.
Yeah, the multi-Michelin star chef saw something special in him and made an unexpected offer.
Would like to invite you to be part of one of the most famous restaurants in the world.
Now, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right there. Let me be clear about what the offer actually was. Chef Ramsay actually invited Michael to work alongside him and not alone at one of his restaurants. Coming from someone as renowned as Ramsay, I can't tell you how huge that is. You see, he agreed initially, but as time went on, Michael had a change of heart. It's crazy how despite being the first ever contestant to have been offered such a killer opportunity, Michael turned it down. However, when Michael looks back on it now, he admits that it was the toughest decision that he's ever had to make. Why, you ask? Well, the truth is, during his Hell's Kitchen journey, Michael was battling with a serious problem. The thought of heading to London with all of its glamour while carrying a really heavy addiction scared him to the extent of making a foolish decision. In an interview with the BBC, he confessed that, "I was in Hell's Kitchen with a drug problem. I was deathly afraid of going to London with this giant addiction." He later confessed in an interview how much he regretted his decision.
That's a big regret of mine, as I felt like I lost part of my opportunity due to my addiction.
Life rarely gives us the same opportunity twice. But even though he hit rock bottom after this decision, his comeback was legendary. So, growing up in the rural landscapes of Colorado, Michael became very interested in cooking from a very young age. He discovered his passion while helping his father in the kitchen. It became his way of expressing himself and finding his groove outside the four walls of his classroom. Speaking of school, Michael faced his fair share of challenges during his time there. He suffered from attention deficit disorder, aka ADD, which made it really tough for him to thrive in a traditional classroom setting. But you know what saved the day? Cooking.
Cooking is the one thing that's has kept me grounded and kept me up.
Sounds like it became his sanctuary and a place where he could channel his energy and passion. In the kitchen, he discovered a whole new world of possibilities, and he knew he was onto something special. Soon, he ditched school and was ready to get his hands dirty in an attempt to pursue his culinary dreams head-on. Fast forward to the late 90s, specifically 1999, this is when things got really exciting for Michael. He embarked on an epic adventure to London, where he spent a solid 2 years training to become a top-notch chef. Damn, in London, baby! The city was buzzing with culinary magic, and he was right in the thick of it. During his time in the city, Michael got wind of a certain chef who was making waves in the culinary world. Now, you might know him as the most shrewd and warm-hearted master chef that the world has ever seen. Yep, the one and only Chef Ramsay. Almost instantly, Michael was a fan. Speaking about Ramsay in an interview, he said, "Chef Ramsay had this reputation out there of being this badass chef that no one wanted to mess with." He expanded on this by saying,
Really smart, he's got a great, he's the real deal as far as chefs go,
Well, rightly said, Michael. Apparently, back in the day, Michael even tried to work with Ramsay for free, but after a year of trying, he realized how exclusive it was to get in there. So, when he got wind of the auditions for Hell's Kitchen, courtesy of his in-laws who had connections in the industry, he saw it as a golden opportunity. This meant that he could get up close and personal with the man himself. Michael swiftly made it to the top 12 after intense rounds of interviews and, of course, a ton of screening tests like these.
Do you like that?
Personally, I don't, but I
can't hear a word you're saying.
However, he knew this was just the beginning. He didn't want to be on national TV and lose. Michael, you really had nothing to worry about. You made it seem like a piece of cake. But he did have a pretty rough start though. Remember Chef Ramsay's reaction to his first dish?
You've got a palate like a cow's backside. That is disgusting.
Ouch, that was rough. However, Michael didn't let that faze him. Serious question though, where does Chef Ramsay come up with these insults? I mean, that was just hilarious. And while the other contestants continued to receive such savage reactions, Michael skillfully navigated through the challenges and consistently showcased his culinary prowess. Not only that, he also became the go-to person for support. He would step up to assist his struggling teammates and lead his team to victory. Chef Ramsay soon understood the command he had over his team, and this is what he had to say about it.
He started understanding how he has to put energy into his team.
What's fascinating is that behind Chef Ramsay's tough exterior, there was a different side to him outside of the kitchen. Michael revealed that he was actually like a thin, boisterous kid. Yep, those were the words that he used to describe one of the most fearsome chefs of our time. If you don't believe me, then listen to this.
He's just like a little kid with ADD. He has the biggest smile.
A few days into the competition, Michael discovered that Chef Ramsay's explosive outbursts were just driven by a genuine desire for excellence. He recognized that the celebrity chef demanded perfection and was motivated by the goal of bringing out the best in each contestant and in every single dish. I told you. He isn't as aggressive as he seems, except for when it comes to food. As you might remember, Michael found himself in the ultimate showdown on Hell's Kitchen. And that was his final face-off against Ralph Pagano. It was a battle of culinary titans, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Remember this challenge when the two finalists went head-to-head with their dish right on the streets?
Which dish would you go to the restaurant for? That one.
I have to say I like that one.
I mean, that was epic. Clearly, this challenge gave us a good idea of who the better chef was. However, the finale was just as thrilling. Michael and Ralph were given the task of creating their own menus and designing their own dining experience. They did have a crew of former contestants to assist them in running their kitchens. Michael initially struggled to gain respect as a head chef, but eventually he managed to get his team back on track.
Come on, you guys, it's not around. This is not Chef Ramsay's service, this is my service.
As the intense service came to a close, Michael and Ralph were brought to a decisive moment. They stood before two doors with anticipation thick in the air. The tension was palpable. One door would open, revealing the path to victory, while the other would remain locked, sealing the other person's fate. The first ever champion would soon be declared. Heart pounding, Michael took a step forward and grasped the handle of the door. With a deep breath, he turned it, and this is what happened. What awaited him was an overwhelming eruption of cheers and applause. The room was filled with celebration and excitement, and it was a true victorious moment. He totally deserved it. Like I was saying, when Chef Ramsay extended the offer of working alongside him in London, it forced Michael to confront a deep-seated issue. It was something that was silently brewing for some time. Speaking on this is what he said.
You know, I had a dependency on pain medication.
You see, a couple years before Michael graced the screens of Hell's Kitchen, he underwent a back surgery to address his scoliosis. As a part of his recovery, he was prescribed potent opioid painkillers to manage the post-surgical discomfort. Unfortunately, what was meant to be a temporary solution quickly spiraled into a full-blown addiction. At the same time, Michael's addiction turned into a coping mechanism. As a result, he made some drastic decisions that eventually ruined his chances to make it big in the culinary world. It's quite understandable that he wasn't in the right mind to take up a challenging job. But that being said, it's really sad that he turned down this lifelong dream of getting mentored by Chef Ramsay. Ralph must have been itching to grab the opportunity that Michael simply let slip. Speaking of addictions, apparently during the intense filming of Hell's Kitchen, Michael found himself in a precarious situation. He handed over his prescribed pills to the show's producers, all the while secretly smuggling his own stash into the building. The grip of addiction was tightening its hold on him, and he even had to request additional pills from his doctor to sustain his dependence. But did it show in his performance? I don't remember one time when Michael looked dazed or anxious due to the lack of his fix. Michael admitted in a heart-to-heart interview that it was consuming a significant portion of his mental energy just to keep the addiction in check in order to continue working. When the opportunity arose for Michael to be flown out to London for a taste of what his future could hold, a wave of excitement and possibility washed over him. However, the dark shadow of his addiction loomed large, clouding his judgment and stirring up fear. In the end, the overwhelming fear of not having access to his drugs ultimately led Michael to make a heartbreaking decision. And that was to decline Chef Ramsay's offer. It was a choice driven by the desperate need to sustain his addiction, even at the cost of missing out on a remarkable opportunity. The internet was pretty divided on this decision. On one hand, people commented saying he had 6 figures a year laid at his feet and yet he chose to turn it down to be a junkie. Well, people were slamming him basically for being a weak man. But on the other hand, there were also those who were empathetic towards the situation, saying how it's not so simple to deal with addictions and a debilitating surgery. You see, even though he did decide not to work with a renowned chef, he had big plans in the US. This included opening his own restaurant in Los Angeles. Plus, he had money in the bank and was eagerly awaiting the arrival of his first child with his wife Lola. But then, a devastating tragedy struck. Shortly after opening the restaurant, Michael and Lola's daughter passed away. And this hit him real hard.
We lost our child. I was not able to bounce back out of that mentally.
This unbearable loss sent Michael's life into a whirlwind. He confessed that he couldn't keep his addiction at bay any longer. It all started crumbling around him and he faced years of immense struggle. Michael tried to keep going at the restaurant for about 6 weeks before reaching a breaking point. His relationship with Lola crumbled, leaving him without a stable home. He found himself living out of his truck, struggling to make ends meet. Desperate to support his escalating drug addiction, Michael took on kitchen jobs just to get by, and this is what he had to say about it.
I was able to do a month or two, but then I had to drop out of it, and life took some crazy courses for me at the time.
Before he knew it, he found himself residing beneath an underpass near the bustling Hollywood Boulevard. Isolated and alone, he became a complete loner, seeking solace in the radio as he drifted off to sleep every night. He continued on by saying this.
Sort of like finding little hides, little holes to sleep in at night.
It was almost like Michael was living a double life. On one hand, he was completely addicted, and on the other, he led cooking classes at the Sur la Table store during the day. After relying on prescription painkillers for years, Michael encountered a significant hurdle. His doctor in New Mexico, where he relocated, refused to prescribe him any more medication. As the withdrawal symptoms started to take hold, panic set in. He recognized the urgent need for help and attempted to check himself into rehab. However, he was informed that his withdrawal symptoms were way too severe and he would require hospitalization instead. Faced with the desperation of his situation, Michael knew that he had to find a way to get drugs into his system. That's when he came up with a risky idea. He knew that his local pharmacy kept their medication on the shelves at night, making it a vulnerable target. Armed with an axe, he broke into the pharmacy, stole some drugs, and drove out into the middle of the desert. In short, this is what he had to say.
It's just my life was not what I wanted it to be.
Originally, Michael had intended to use his time in the desert as an opportunity to gradually wean himself off the drugs. However, things took a turn for the worse and his situation spiraled out of control. According to him, he went almost 30 days without any food or water. The fact that he survived is a miracle if you ask me. Overwhelmed by despair, he soon reached a breaking point and made a devastating attempt to end his own life. In a stroke of fate, a compassionate passerby spotted Michael as he crawled alongside the road, drifting in and out of consciousness. Their timely intervention became his lifeline. Michael reflects on that moment, sharing, "I didn't want to die, and I needed to get somewhere where someone could see me and help me." So when he regained consciousness in the hospital, 48 hours had passed since his desperate act. Determined to turn life around, he made a resolute decision that it was time to break free from the chains of addiction. Following a 10-day recovery period in the hospital, he took a significant step by entering rehab in June of 2012. In a not-so-surprising twist, cooking became an integral part of Michael's journey to recovery. Each day, he immersed himself in the therapeutic power of the kitchen, preparing 3 meals for a group of 7 to 8 individuals. They were all battling with their own struggles with drug addiction. The gods of love intervened, and during his time in rehab, he crossed paths with his future wife, Charlene. Their connection blossomed, and Michael finally recalls those early years saying, "I had a smile on my face for the first 2 or 3 years. I couldn't believe how good life was. Honestly, I couldn't stop smiling at their pictures together." Having a partner who's your best friend and accepts you for who you are without judging is pretty rare and truly a blessing. Following his rehab journey, Michael made a courageous decision to take responsibility for his actions. He turned himself into the police for the pharmacy raid, acknowledging the need to face the consequences of his crime. Subsequently, he served close to a month in jail where he was given the opportunity to contribute in the kitchen. Once released, Michael was determined to reclaim his passion and identity as a chef. He recognized the importance of earning back the title he held so dear. He started by taking shifts at a local breakfast cafe, dedicating the next 3 to 4 years to honing his skills and rebuilding his culinary abilities from scratch.
I won Hell's Kitchen. I think it's time for me to do my own thing.
Yep.
I don't want any partners. don't need any investors.
And well, he knew exactly what he had to do. In recent years, Michael has made significant strides in his culinary career. He assumed the role of head chef at several esteemed restaurants and has lent his expertise as a consultant. He's assisted several chefs in crafting their own menus. With a glimmer of hope in his heart, he nurtures a dream of one day owning his own food van. He also opened a GoFundMe page asking for a second chance to make his dream a reality. Oh, and he also revealed that he tried to reach out to Hell's Kitchen a number of times, but they never responded. With a sense of disappointment, he told the BBC that Hell's Kitchen was only into featuring success stories. But Michael's story is a success story. This man has undergone a journey of rediscovery and transformation and is now living a beautiful life with his family doing what he loves most. Interestingly, I came across a quote by the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung just a few days ago. He wrote, "No tree, it is said, can go to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." In truth, Jung wasn't talking about actual hell or heaven. He just really meant that to reach your full potential, you're gonna have to overcome all the trials and tribulations life throws at you. And that's exactly what Michael said in an interview.
You're just gonna have to get to a point in your life where your life is so horrible and you can't go along any further that you just have to change it.
Today, Michael is open to teaching his recipes on different online platforms.
If you guys want me to show you guys how to make anything, cook anything, let me know, and I'd love to put together a little clip for you guys.
So don't forget to reach out to him if you please. Anyway, here's wishing Chef Michael Wray a happier life ahead. But who knows, maybe someday he may come back as a judge or a sous chef on Hell's Kitchen in the future.